Tonight on CFTK-TV News, LNG Canada warns flaring is expected to continue, Alberta's Premier takes her North Coast pipeline plan to Ottawa, and a new study suggests ways to mitigate flooding in BC.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. I'm Jaylene Mathews. LNG Canada has advised the public of continued planned flaring until November 10th, associated with the startup of Train 2. They say that during these activities, the flare height will vary between 15 meters and 90 meters. Also anticipated is increased noise and visible emissions, as well as black smoke from the flare. LNG Canada says flaring is a provincially regulated safety measure that ensures the controlled, efficient combustion of natural gas during specific operational phases. It is a critical part of safely operating a facility of scale and is not expected to be routine during regular operations. LNG Canada uses the Voyant Alert service to send out all community notifications related to the Safe Startup program. In response to a peer-reviewed global study that alleges startup flaring emissions at liquefied natural gas export facilities have been systemically underestimated and omitted in environmental assessments, Tracy Saxby, Executive Director of My Sea to Sky, is pushing the BC government to better evaluate the health risks. She called on the BC government to immediately require full modeling and accounting of flaring emissions in the LNG commissioning phase, including for projects that have already been approved. Saxby is asking for an independent, cumulative, comprehensive human health impacts assessment of the gas industry in BC, from fracking to transport, liquefaction, and export. Smithers RCMP say they stopped a vehicle that was linked to a prohibited driver, and that discovery led to multiple charges being filed against Morgan Redlack. Police discovered that suspect allegedly driving while prohibited, and after arresting him, they searched the vehicle and trailer. The searches resulted in police finding an estimated $10,000 in stolen property items, such as an e-bike, Patagonia waders, and a guitar. The Smithers RCMP gave credit to the additional police resources that were available to them because of C-Step, and Redlack was remanded into custody pending a court appearance. Otherwise, Smithers RCMP say in the first 9 months of 2025, they've seen a decrease in both property crime and shoplifting incidents in the area. After accounting for 45% of their total calls in 2024, shoplifting only made up 12% of calls for the Smithers detachment in 2025 from January to September. Property crime calls have decreased from 28% to 17% over the same time frame. The Smithers RCMP have credited this change to their enhanced patrols and timely referrals for community supports. They also believe the best way to maintain this change is continuing to have relationships with other local agencies. And Alberta's Premier isn't losing steam on her proposition of a pipeline to the north coast of BC, as she took her plan straight to Ottawa. CTV's Rachel Aiello reports.
Alberta's Premier brought her push for a new pipeline to Parliament Hill today.
All it takes is the Prime Minister to say yes, and so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get to that by mid-November.
Danielle Smith wants a bitumen pipeline from Alberta to British Columbia's west coast greenlit, but BC Premier David Eby has come out hard against the major project proposal, calling it a political creation that would put jobs and the coastline at risk. Today, Smith shot back.
I think Premier Eby's comments are un-Canadian and they're unconstitutional.
Eby then responded.
It's not the Danielle Smith show, it's the Canadian team. And we all deserve the same opportunity for the same federal funding for our projects as she does for hers. That's not un-Canadian.
Alberta's Premier said that in her brief meeting with Carney yesterday, he committed to getting back to her by mid-next month about the pipeline and Alberta carbon capture project and whether the Liberals are ready to repeal certain environmental policies. Today, the Liberals touted their approach.
What we're seeing is a number of premiers, conservative premiers, very excited about our goals to make Canada an energy superpower.
While in the nation's capital, Premier Smith also met with federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and his caucus. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
Coming up next, new findings on BC floods. All remaining British Columbia-run liquor and cannabis stores in the province are now behind picket lines as public service workers step up union job action. The escalation by the BC General Employees Union also includes all Service BC workers, raising the total number of members participating in job action to almost 25,000. Private liquor and cannabis stores in BC remain open, but they are supplied by provincial government distribution warehouses that are also behind picket lines. The union says a total of 431 provincial government work sites are now behind picket lines as the weeks-long labor dispute persists. And the dire mental health situation that's been plaguing Vancouver is beginning to see relief after a massive hiring spree, and some are suggesting the same effort should be applied across the province. CTV's Martin McMahon reports.
The promise from then mayoral candidate Mayor Ken Sim was a big one. 100 new mental health nurses to go with 100 new cops.
We have an opportunity to set a new standard in North America for a modern and a compassionate approach towards addressing complex issues.
3 years later, Vancouver Coastal Health has hired half that number of workers to provide new mental health supports. But the new programming funded by the City of Vancouver appears to be working. According to a Vancouver Coastal Health report, mobile mental health units are leading to drops in emergency room visits and police interactions.
So they have hired 41 of 50 mental health workers and nurses. And what we've heard today from Coastal Health is that they've determined that 50 staffing complement is actually the right number of staff as opposed to the 100 that we promised during the campaign.
But while this councillor acknowledges the program is making a difference, she believes people should expect politicians to follow through on promises.
Going into an election year, ABC needs to not continue to make promises in the lead up to an election that are impossible for them to carry out or are oversimplified and gloss over the complexity of the problem and mislead the public.
But then there's the question of why the city has felt the need to fund what is an area of provincial jurisdiction.
The City of Vancouver shouldn't have to be doing that. It's $8 million having to put into this, and they're seeing results. So if the provincial government wanted to figure out how to fix this problem, they could look at what the City of Vancouver is doing and actually pick up the tab like they should be.
While these mental health supports appear to be having some positive outcomes, questions remain. ABC is pursuing a 0% property tax increase. But where are the cuts going to come from if it is continuing to fund non-core services like these? Martin McMahon, CTV News, Vancouver.
A new study has suggested that the heavy recent flood seasons in BC may have been exacerbated by human development. CTV's Ben Milger reports.
Scenes like this one that played out in Deep Cove last year have become all too familiar to British Columbians. While we tend to focus on major floods, such as the one that left much of the Fraser Valley underwater in 2021, localized flooding can be just as damaging on a smaller scale, and it happens much more frequently than the major events.
Maybe the 100-year flood that's now becoming more of like the 10-year or 20-year flood, or even if we take some smaller floods that are happening once in about a few decades that are happening maybe many more times within a decade.
Researchers at UBC's Forest Science Center pored over the data and found the approach to preventing major flood events, including building higher dikes and bigger culverts, will not stop the water.
Is not going to do the job because it's treating the symptoms and not the root cause of the problem.
Instead, the study suggests governments look at the impacts of things like forestry, mining, and urbanization in flood mitigation planning. It suggests maintaining tree cover and utilizing natural lakes and wetlands could prevent rising water from reaching vulnerable infrastructure and homes.
This can maybe be a good opportunity for us to look at our flood management strategies and really try to incorporate some of these natural characteristics into how we manage floods.
A changing climate and more development on the edge of the wilderness means floods will inevitably happen. Perhaps a new approach to mitigation can reduce their severity. Ben Milger, CTV News, Vancouver.
And next up, we'll take a look at your Northwest weather report. Tonight on the north coast, expect a few clouds, winds becoming east at 30 kilometers an hour, gusting to 50 this evening, a low of +5 degrees. Over the next few days on the north coast, expect sun and wind, maybe a few clouds Friday, but clear sun for the weekend. Daily highs 10 to 13 degrees, overnight lows between 0 and 6 degrees. Tonight in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expected to be clear, wind becoming northeast at 20 kilometers an hour late this evening, a low of +2 degrees. Over the next few days in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect quite a bit more sunshine with a few clouds on the weekend. Daily highs 8 to 13 degrees, overnight lows between 0 and 2 degrees. Tonight in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, it's looking clear. Fog patches developing before morning. We've got some wind coming in from the north at 20 kilometers an hour, gusting to 40, becoming light this evening, a low of -8 degrees. Over the next few days in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect lots more sunshine and maybe a few clouds on Saturday. Daily highs 6 to 14 degrees, overnight lows between freezing and 5 degrees. Now let's take a look at your Northwest BC road report. On Highway 16, there's construction in Prince Rupert with the detour in effect. Also bridge maintenance, and utility work underway. On Highway 37, there's maintenance as well as bridge construction underway. On Highway 37A, there's a section with falling rocks as well as bridge maintenance and bridge construction. On the Niska Highway, there's mowing underway. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, Trump and Carney face off in the Oval Office. An electoral reform advocacy group says a BC government committee formed to study changing the way British Columbians vote has wrapped up with overwhelming support for a proportional representation system. Fair Vote Canada says the Special Committee on Democratic and Electoral Reform received more than 800 submissions and 93% were in support of scrapping the current first-past-the-post system. Fair Vote Canada Executive Director Anita Nickerson says the feedback the committee heard was clear that British Columbians want to scrap what she calls a polarized two-party system. It's been more than 2 weeks since an Alberta boy went missing while camping with his family in the Crow's Nest Pass area. While the official search was called off last week, civilians are now scouring the area in hopes of finding the 6-year-old. Here's CTV's Kathy Lee with one of the civilian searchers in his effort to do his part.
It's a huge area.
Each step deliberate, every movement purposeful. Mike Hassel scans for the faintest signs of disturbance.
I'm kind of going down the pathway of least resistance, figuring, well, where would a little child go?
The child he is looking for is 6-year-old Darius McDougall from Lethbridge, Alberta. He went missing while on a camping trip with his family in the Crow's Nest Pass more than 2 weeks ago.
This is my second time out here trying to do what I can.
The area where Darius went missing is very rugged. As you can see, this is incredibly tough terrain to navigate, even for the most experienced people.
Slippery as well. And you also got other factors such as the wildlife, like bears are high mating, so there's high chance of bears.
All reasons the public was asked to stay away while professionals combed the area. But after 11 days of searching by hundreds of volunteers from Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan, with no signs of Darius, the formal search was called off and the area reopened. Authorities say it's unlikely that Darius survived. As the RCMP continues its investigation, a community of civilian searchers grows on Facebook. Many, just like Hassel, heading out on their own.
This whole area was searched rigorously with helicopters, infrared, like the works. But it never hurts just to go over it again and just see what I can do.
And Hassel will continue to retrace more ground, steadfast in his effort to find Darius, saying he wants to bring hope, comfort, and closure to the child's family. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Crowsnest Pass, Alberta.
President Trump promised that Prime Minister Mark Carney was leaving the White House happy. Now we know that work is being done to improve trade relations that have been so rocky this past year. CTV's Mike Lecoutal explains.
With a firm but friendly handshake, Prime Minister Mark Carney arrived at the White House for his working lunch with U.S. President Donald Trump.
We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things.
In a 32-minute Oval Office meeting, Trump called Carney a great man several times, adding he's confident they'd work through the issues preventing a deal on tariffs.
He's a world-class leader. He's a man that knows what he wants. And I'm not surprised to see that he won the election and won it substantially, and I would think he's more popular now. He's a good man. He does a great job, and he's a tough negotiator.
He's a great man, and you want to do a deal with Canada. Why aren't you?
Because I want to be a great man, too.
Trump says the two countries are in a natural business conflict because Canada and the U.S. want to make similar things on both sides of the border.
It's a tough situation because we want to make our cars here. At the same time, we want Canada to do well making cars. So we're working on formulas, and I think we'll get there.
Carney said the two countries are competing, not in conflict.
We are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get.
Following the meeting, the minister in charge of Canada-U.S. trade updated reporters on how it went.
It concluded with the president and the prime minister directing us, me and my colleagues, and the president, his cabinet secretaries who were there, Ambassador Greer, Secretary Lutnick, and others, to continue the conversation and to quickly land deals that will bring, we think, greater certainty in areas where the principal areas would be steel and aluminum and energy.
In a sign that work will be continuing, Dominic LeBlanc is staying in D.C. for the next 24 hours for more meetings. And this evening, Prime Minister Carney is having a working dinner with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Mike Lecoutal, CTV News, Washington.
A fire at a U.S. refinery may affect gas prices in BC this week. GasBuddy.com analyst Patrick DeHaan says prices in the province could rise between 7 and 15 cents a litre after wholesale prices spiked on Monday. The spike comes after a fire at a Los Angeles Chevron refinery last week. Turning to the markets now, Canada's main stock index finished 150 points higher, boosted by strength in the technology and basic materials sectors, while U.S. markets remained in record territory. The Canadian dollar rose under a tenth of a cent. The price of gold gained $66. Oil rose 83 cents. Natural gas dropped 16 cents. Aluminum gained $16.50. In Toronto, the TSX gained 150 points. The Venture Index rose by 22. In New York, the Nasdaq was up by 255 points, and the Dow Jones rose 28 points. Still ahead, a Québécois artist fights for the preservation of his legacy. Conservatives want to restrict birthright citizenship in Canada. Under Canadian law, anyone born in the country is automatically a Canadian citizen. But conservative immigration critic Michelle Rempel-Garner says that should be limited to those who have at least one parent who is either a citizen or a permanent resident. The Institute for Canadian Citizenship says that change would scapegoat newcomers, and it warns anti-immigrant sentiment is on the rise in Canada. Years after the Freedom Convoy took over downtown Ottawa, the main organizers have been sentenced. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
After being convicted of mischief, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, the main leaders of the Freedom Convoy, arrived to hear their fate.
Lawrence, what do you think will happen today? What are you hoping for?
Hoping that Tamara doesn't go to jail.
Get him off. A supporter was arrested before the judge even handed down her sentence. The trial has highlighted schisms in society over vaccine mandates, but Justice Heather Perkins McVeigh said politics has no place in this court and plays no role in the determination of what is a fair, just, and appropriate sentence. For their role as organizers in the 3-week occupation of Ottawa in 2022, both Barber and Leach were given conditional sentences of 18 months. It includes 1 year under house arrest and a curfew after that. Chris Barber helped coordinate the movement of trucks and counseled others to disobey a court order.
For my client's comment, he respects the judge's decision.
Dismantling the protest cost Ottawa police $55 million. The occupation also shut down businesses and disrupted community services. But the court acknowledged both Barber and Leach did try to limit the size of the occupation. Leach had already spent 49 days in jail.
The question of was there remorse for what she did? No. She pled not guilty. She's been found guilty of mischief. We're seriously looking at appealing that finding.
Leach and Barber's legal issues are not over. Both are named in a $290 million class action lawsuit filed by the residents of Ottawa.
The possible dismantling of a beloved but controversial fountain has some calling to save it. CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin explains.
Armand Vaillancourt's archives are a treasure trove.
1997.
Filled with stories of the colorful Quebec artist's life of creativity and controversy lived on the world stage.
I did 3 times the Times magazine, yeah.
But now at the age of 96, one file is always on his mind.
It has been a witness.
He's fighting to save the monumental Vaillancourt fountain, unveiled in 1971 in San Francisco, now slated for potential demolition.
I'm not there to please nobody.
The fountain, a brutalist work of art, has long divided onlookers and city officials. Vaillancourt's support of Indigenous protesters in the late 1960s sparked controversy, and he was left off the fountain inauguration guest list, but he showed up anyway.
He entered the water and wrote Québec Libre on his own work.
In 1987, U2's Bono graffitied the structure during a concert. And the fountain survived the devastating 1989 earthquake, becoming a cultural landmark and also a skateboarding mecca, featured in a Tony Hawk video game, and that lends its name to a Nike shoe. Now, San Francisco's Art Commission says it's a structurally unsound, hazardous structure which would require multi-million-dollar renovation in order to bring the fountain up to current health and safety standards. Vaillancourt, his son Alexis, and supporters in the arts world dispute the assessment, calling it political, but also say the fountain is worth saving.
If you erase a kind of monument like that, you erase a part of the history.
What is the strongest argument that you made to keep the fountain?
It deserved to have a long life again.
There was a public meeting in San Francisco last night where there were a lot of comments about the fountain, but the final decision has yet to be made according to the city. Genevieve Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
That's our news for now. Thanks for watching.